Another flashpoint between India and US has emerged. US has withdrawn the sanction waiver which was present on Chabahar Port, and it is an strike against India. Chabahar Port remains significant not just in economic terms but political, legal and humanitarian terms, not just for India but for the countries involved as well. Hello everyone, welcome to Vajiram and Ravi's Flash News. My name is Shubhangi Singh, and in today's session we are going to understand that how revocation of sanction waivers, especially for Chabahar Port, is going to impact India in so many direct and indirect ways, and what can be done to address this, how it is a conflict point yet again for India and how India plans to navigate it. So let us start by understanding that what exactly has happened in this particular situation. So what has happened, that announcement has been made by US where they are saying that they are basically withdrawing the sanctions waiver that they had granted for all sort of India's work, specifically at Chabahar Port. Now, if we talk about this particular withdrawal, this will be effective from September 29, and this is an old sanction waiver that was given in 2018 itself. Now, if you remember, 2018 was the time when President Donald Trump himself was in the position where he is at present, and he is revoking it. Adds another pointer to the U-turns US President Donald Trump keeps on taking. Now, the reason that has been cited by US that why they are revoking this sanction waiver that was given to India, their reason has been simple, that they want to limit the financial flows to Iran and isolate Iran, so that there is maximum pressure on Iran, so that Iran stops with the regional activity that it is supporting and doing. So basically, US is playing the partner in crime role for Israel, and this is yet another tactic to not bring Iran under the position but also in the meanwhile target India in a different direction, so that India also is able to come under pressure for the Russian crude oil situation. So basically for US it seemed like a hitting two targets with one particular stone in this situation, and this has cropped up another friction point between India and US that would need to be addressed amidst the trade friction that is already going on. But before we move into the details of India and US friction, we need to understand this whole situation. When we are talking about this whole waiver, as I said, it was given in 2018, the sanction waiver, and in this India was allowed to develop Chabahar Port, also railway to Zaidan. So if you see, this whole route gives India access to Central Asia while bypassing Pakistan, and this also facilitates India's energy partnerships as well as trade routes. So the whole use of port for Afghanistan was also supported, especially for humanitarian and reconstruction trade, despite there were already Iran sanctions. So US in the very same situation had given the sanction waiver back in 2018 to India. And because of this revocation that we are seeing, we will find an immediate impact that any entity, including India, which is part of operating or financing Chabahar Port, there will be a direct exposure in terms of sanctions would be placed, and it will be under IFCA, that is Iran Freedom and Counter Proliferation Act of US. So this is a clear situation that if India continues to facilitate Chabahar Port, use Chabahar Port or operate from there, that again we are brought into the highlight of sanctions by US. Now, why is this a problematic situation for us? That you will be able to understand when you understand that how significant Chabahar Port remains for India. It is not just our key to Central Asia and Europe in terms of trade links, it is so much more where the impact is strategic, economic, political, legal, humanitarian and more. So when we are talking about this, let us dive deep and understand what is the essence of Chabahar Port for us, and then we will move into implications that this situation brings upon India. So when we are talking about Chabahar Port, basically it is a strategic point and a multinational gateway which, as I said, unlocks a lot of opportunities and potentials for us. So if we start with the first one, that is strategic and geopolitical, you will get to see that this port helps us in bypassing Pakistan, especially if we are talking about land route. Pakistan being the notorious neighbor it has been and the problematic one, it was always difficult for India to look in terms of land route. Now this gives us easy bypassing here. How? We'll see. So if you can see this map, you will find this, the trade route via Pakistan into entering, be it Afghanistan and Central Asia, would have been always a problematic one. But a maritime route which directly facilitates bypassing Pakistan is going to be more stable, more strategic, and then definitely there is no direct dependence rather than mutual interests which will be addressed. In the very same point, you have to understand we are not only bypassing Pakistan, we are also counterbalancing China. How we are counterbalancing China? If you understand CPEC, that is China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, that ends at Gwadar Port. Now, Gwadar Port is merely 70 to 72 kilometers away from Chabahar Port. So, we are also counterbalancing China's presence not just in South Asian trade routes, but also its presence in Indian Ocean and the kind of access that China will get with CPEC and Pakistan's partnership. Now, this was the strategic and geopolitical importance of Chabahar. But when we look into the other dimension, that is the connectivity and the trade facilitation it gives us, you will also find that it gives us a shorter trade route, especially when we are talking about accessing Turkey, European Union, that too via Iran. And this shorter route also brings in cost effectiveness, where it reduces the cost of our logistics and making our goods and services competitive in terms of price. It also helps in regional integration, especially with the partnership that we get to see with Iran, and it opens a front for India into new markets, not because of just cost effectiveness but trade routes, but accessibility as well. Chabahar is not just one pointer delivery that we see, but it gives us so many dimensions in terms of opportunity, because beyond, if you talk about route and connectivity, we also get to see that how it helps us in humanitarian causes and provision of aid, especially for Afghanistan. US, which gave us waiver, sanction waiver for humanitarian aid and aid logistics to Afghanistan, is the same country which has taken away this waiver. It facilitates India's developmental role in the region and also helps the India's image of Vishwamitra, where we want to facilitate, where we want to be representative, where we want to show the humanitarian sides that exist with us. Now, with the withdrawal of the sanction waiver, all of this remains very much threatened, be it the humanitarian aid, be it the shorter trade route, be it the transit potential that we had, accessibility we were looking forward to, security dimensions. All of this remains at risk, but also so more, the finance remains at risk, investments remain at risk, participants remain at risk of the sanctions that could be put upon the participants itself. Now, in this situation, all the significance that we are deriving from Chabahar Port makes it India's strategic cornerstone itself. It is much more than a trade route. It is much more than a trade route. It is the cornerstone of India's foreign policy. It is a vital tool which not only helps us in trade, but also facilitating developmental role, also facilitating aid, also facilitating and making sure that there is more solidity when India is talking about look west ambitions in the coming times. So this is something that remains very important, and the implications that will come with it will be much more, and in direct and indirect forms as well. Implications in such scenario will be drastic and will come in direct as well as indirect forms. So if we talk about direct implications, so when we are talking about direct consequences, it directly brings the risk of operations being continued. All the contractors, IPGL, They are under the risk of sanctions that will delay the projects, delay the expansion, increase the cost, investment might be deterred. There will be ambiguity in terms of trade routes. Furthermore, it will also raise the financial difficulties for India. There will be a major setback which we will get to see geopolitically with reference to China and Pakistan. Furthermore, India would have to reorient their strategy in terms of how to deal with US as well as Iran in this given time when there is uncertainty, where they have committed to the development of this particular port as well as the projects that are associated with it. So the list is long, and these direct impacts will have also indirect consequences which will be seen in the form of cargo that goes from this port, in the form of exporters who use this particular route, and also the sectors that are associated with it. That is why this particular move can actually trickle down and affect investments that are being made in the port, in the Indian sentiment that is present, and this needs to be addressed very well through diplomatic policy as well as foreign policy. India has to work on enhanced influence, which has also seen a setback through the Saudi and Pakistan pact that has been signed, and also it needs to put up a balancing act in which it does not compromise on strategic partners, be it US, be it Iran as well, because Iran still remains one of the important oil suppliers to us. Now, in this situation, the question arises that what can be done and what should India look forward to, because it has much more broader implications than what meets the eye, because this sanction will also give space Iran to move towards closer to China as well as Russia when it would look in terms of partnership, in terms of investment, and it will definitely diminish India's leverage. Furthermore, Afghanistan, which it had access to Indian aid as well as trade, that will automatically shrink. It will affect Afghanistan's economy and the redevelopment that was taking place. So there is a direct impact on regional order as well. It is going to throttle and bring another flashpoint in India-US relationship, because here we find, apart from the trade tariff issue that is going on, that we get to see that would need a quiet diplomacy or another targeted exemption that can be negotiated between India and US at this given point. Furthermore, it is bringing to highlight thing that had been reaffirmed recently, that the sanctions or any sort of unilateral actions directly affect the third party connectivity projects, which has a direct impact on global trade, global order, and especially rule based order that all the multilateral organization or regional organization are looking towards. It absolutely challenges India's ability to pursue any sort of projects when we are fighting big powers and standing in rivalry. Either we get to focus on development or basically putting out fires which are being set up by third party, and it is related to some other country. So this puts us in a problematic situation altogether. Furthermore, this is a clear lesson for India that we need to again have diversified routes, just like we need to focus on diversified sources, and we need to put together strong financial mechanism which is insulated, which protects us from any such unilateral action. Basically, the need of our again is that India balances the act, brings all the party in the camps in a balancing situation, but focuses on self-reliance for the long term, because such fires will keep cropping up, and fighting with them all the time will compromise on the growth and development that India is looking forward to. That was all from my side. Thank you so much.